Hello, welcome to the 13th episode of Rachel Pilcher Writing Workshop's Facebook Live events. Tonight's topic is going to be traditional versus indie publishing. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight with me. If you are not joining live, feel free to watch, make comments, ask questions, anything that you have that I don't address during this session. I will be glad to come on and answer any questions later on in the replay. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can do exactly the same thing. Go ahead and post any questions you might have, and I will get on board and see what it is that I can do to answer your questions. So, excuse me, I still have that little cough, and it just shows up when I have to start talking. I don't know if maybe it's a camera fear cough that's coming along. I'm not quite sure, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to make it through without too much interruption with the cough. So, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This can be just talking about the differences between independent and traditional publishing. It could be a very long discussion because there are so many things that you can say that that are the big differences of them. So I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible. I actually had a course that I taught live that went through the differences between traditional and indie publishing. So I'm hoping I can get it in under 20 minutes. That's the goal. So I have just a few things to say about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the initial differences. Traditional publishing. Whether it's a big publishing company or a smaller company, they generally have quite a few people that are working on your project. So if you are able to get your book into a traditional publishing company, you'll probably have at least 3 people that are working on your book. And at the most, I mean, it could be an entire team. It could be 15 people. It just varies. Depending on how big of a publishing company it is that you're working with. So that means that they'll be able to put the most work towards your project that they can possibly get. And I just noticed that my mom just waved at me. Hi, Mama. That's Sandra Carter Pilcher. That's my mom. And so they have a lot of money that can back up having that. So with indie publishing. And I'm going to kind of bounce between indie publishing and self-publishing and then vanity press publishing because they all kind of fit within the not traditional publishing guidelines. So with indie publishing, a lot of times indie publishing is what they call self-publishing. I can tell you that as a publisher with Sleeping Panther Press, my company is an indie micro publisher. So I publish other people's work. But usually, unless I hire someone else out, a lot of the work is done by me. And with my background in publishing that I have, I know the ins and outs of what needs to be done. A lot of times I will hire out for graphic design for the cover, but the interior designs, I'm doing those. And a lot of that is because I know how to do it. And it's not too difficult depending on what kind of project I'm working on. So that's micro-publishing, but it is independent publishing. Now, self-publishing, that is also called independent publishing, and part of the reason why is because as an independent publisher, you are you're doing everything. You're paying for everything. Now, that doesn't mean that self-publishing is a bad thing. That just means that you are the one that's financing the bills on all of it. So, that means if you get a graphic designer to do your cover, which if you don't have a background in graphic design, then you definitely should do that. But get someone that's professional that can probably incorporate the idea that you have for it to do the cover design. If you are including photos or anything within your manuscript, a lot of times, especially since they do give guidelines and for the self-publishing platforms on how to set up your interior design, so how to do your front matter, how to do your back matter, how to do the the page splits and all of that for your design, whether it, do the layout for it. But it's always good to if you can find someone that can do that for you, especially if you're not very confident in doing that, to have someone do it. Now, some of the self-publishing platforms that you can use, they've actually gotten a little bit smaller. They've consolidated. So Amazon, who owns CreateSpace, has actually just consolidated CreateSpace into Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP. So that means that all of the books that were published through CreateSpace are now going to be published through KDP. I was doing all of my actual printing through CreateSpace. So now I have to make a decision as to if I'm going to keep doing all of my publishing through that, or if I'm going to move it to another platform. Right now, I just transferred everything over to KDP, but I may move to another platform that does very similar printing called Ingram Spark. And there's a lot of things. You can do some research on that, because really I don't have time to go into all of that tonight, but just keep in mind, if you're going to do self-publishing, or if you're going to work with an indie publisher, if you want to be an indie publisher, that is some of the platforms that you have available. There's also BookBaby, and there's several other things that you can check out. If you just Google self-publishing, all kinds of things will come up. Now, the thing you have to watch out for is that a lot of vanity presses are calling themselves self-publishers or self-publishing platforms. So a vanity press is going to be a company that will set up all the cover design, set up all of the editorial work, and they may even have a proofreader do the proofing for you, but you have to pay for that. So you have to pay, it could be several $1,000s that you have to pay for that. And then you have to order a certain number of books. So it could be that you have to order 500 books, or that you have to order 1,000 books. It can vary, but a lot of, especially in the early days of publishing, a lot of times if you didn't publish through one of the big publishing companies, the vanity presses would publish you, but it costs a lot of money to do that. So if you're going to publish on your own, the good thing to do would be to get editorial, so get somebody that can edit your work for you, get someone who can do the cover design, so a graphic designer, and then see where you need to go from there. If you need help doing the interior graphic design, then get somebody that can do that as well. So that is going to cost you out of pocket, but that's something that you can negotiate independently with a freelancer. Traditional publishing, they cover all that for you. You don't have to pay anything. Now, so the problem with vanity press is that you do have to pay a lot up front to get it done. If you're publishing through KDP or Ingram Spark, you don't have to pay them to publish your book. Usually the only time you have to pay is if you use any of their services for editorial, because they do have editorial services, or if you are going to use their graphic design to do a cover. And then you'll have to pay for books that will be published. But they do have a very good cost difference. So, whatever it is you're going to charge your books for, you do get a very good deal on the books whenever you do get them published. And you get them printed. So, so that's just the initial differences. Now, the other difference that you can look at is how long it takes, time-wise. So, traditional publishing can take anywhere between 11 months to 16 months to get your manuscript through the editorial process, to get the proofs, to get the cover design, because you have to also realize that not only are the traditional publishers, the editors, and the graphic artists that are working for them working on your book, but they're probably working on 10 or 15 other titles at the same time. And they have you on a schedule, so wherever the print run is going for the timeline on that, then that's where they go. They also have to get into their space for their printing. So that is something that is scheduled, because they work with large-scale printers that print the books. So it can, like I said, it can take anywhere from 11 months to 16 months from start to finish once you get the traditional publisher signed on, and maybe even longer than that depending on where they're going to put you on their publishing schedule. So a lot of times it can take 2 years from start to finish, from the time you sign your contract until the time you have a book in your hand. It could take up to 2 years. With independent publishing, with indie publishing or self-publishing, it can take 3 months. It usually takes me probably about 3 or 4 months to get through all of the reading, to get through, and cover design. If I'm working with a graphic artist, a graphic designer to do the cover design, it can take about a month to get a really good cover design that the author and I and the cover designer all agree with. And so that can take about a month. And then doing the editorial, going line by line, looking at everything, it'd take a little while. And then once you get everything uploaded, it could take a couple of weeks to get it through the proofing stages. And then you order your books and you have them. So probably 3 months, 4 months at the most. Doesn't take very long. So definitely a benefit over doing traditional publishing, because really you're working on your timeline. If you're doing it yourself, it's whatever you can get done while you're doing it. If you're working with an independent publisher, if you're working with a small press or a micro press or a hybrid, then it will take about 3, 4, 5 months at the most. Not very long. I mean, I know I keep adding a month to it, but it really depends on how many books they're publishing and what their timelines are like. So time, if you've got it, you can independently publish, and it doesn't take very long. So marketing. Now this is a big thing that a lot of people that are holding out on self-publishing or independent publishing don't realize, is that if you're with a traditional publisher, unless you are one of the A-list authors, which on the lines of Stephen King or James Patterson or J.K. Rowling, or the big names, you're not going to probably get a bunch of publicists working for you from the publishing company that are going to line up interviews and get all this stuff done. Most of the marketing of your book is going to come from you, whether it's traditional publishing or self-publishing. So the only bonus in marketing that traditional publishing has over the self-publishing is that they can get you into the bookstores and into different, if it's a literary fiction that you're publishing, they can get you into a review through the literary journals or different things like that. They can get you in a little bit easier because they have a name. So otherwise, it's going to be up to you to get out and hoof it around town, get around your area to do your marketing. So one of the things that you will need to do is decide, how are you going to do your marketing? One thing I do for my authors, whether it's my Panther City review, all of my authors, whether it's like Heath Dollar with Wayland County or Richard Gonzalez with Deer Dancer, is I make postcards and bookmarks. And I give them postcards and bookmarks. They can leave those at any bookstore. It always has the ISBN on it. Make sure if you're doing independent publishing that you do own your own ISBN. You don't use one that you get from KDP or from Ingram Spark. Always buy your own. They don't cost a whole lot of money. It's if you're buying them individually, it's about $48 to get the ISBN and the barcode. You'll want those because you'll need the barcode for the back of your book. So, but the marketing, you're going to put that ISBN on everything. You're going to put where people can buy it. They can always get it on Amazon. Always make sure that they know they can get it on Amazon. If you are selling your book, if you have books, or if you're going to bookstores, you need to be carrying your books all the time, whether you're traditionally published or you're independently published. You have to make sure that you have copies of your book, because people will go, oh, that'll be nice. Do you have a copy that I can buy? If you don't have a copy, you just lost a sale, because there's about a 20% chance that they'll actually go and buy it after that. So you'll have to make sure that you always have something with you so that you can market your book. And if you don't have any copies of your book, the postcards and the bookmarks will at least remind them whenever they look at it, it's like, oh yeah, I was going to look for that book. So make sure that you do that. But you can always make more money if you're in the deal to make the money. You're always going to make more money if you're carrying a copy of your book, because you can get better profit than your royalties are going to give you on that book sale. I can tell you that. I make better profit whenever I sell a book directly to somebody than if they order it on Amazon. So, speaking of money, traditional publishers may offer you an advance. Generally they do. A lot of times it's not a whole lot of money. You know, you're not going to get one of those $50,000 advances that's going to take care of you for a year or two. You're probably going to get, you know, maybe $2,000, maybe $1,000, maybe $500. Especially if you are a first-time published author. Unless you have won several competitions and you've been able to prove yourself through being published through literary journals or sci-fi journals, if you're a sci-fi writer or whatever type of writing you're doing, then you have to prove that you're going to have an audience. And so that's something I'm going to talk about, not right now, but in a future Facebook Live. I'm going to talk about the importance of social media, having an audience for your writing, and including that is getting the word out about your work that's being published in other places. So more than likely, with an independent publisher, you're probably not going to get an advance. And if you self-publish, you are your advance. Anything you have in your pocket, that's your advance. That's all you're going to have. So there are many things that are provided, though, through traditional and indie presses, but like the editorial that I spoke of earlier. But other than that, you are responsible for paying for it if you are doing your own publishing. So income. That's the last thing I'm going to talk about tonight. Income with traditional and indie and self-publishing. Writing your books is probably not going to make you a millionaire unless you are just amazing at getting out and marketing yourself and you find the right benefactors that will make sure that you get in front of the right people. That's just how it is. So you may not make the money back that you spend time-wise or financially on your book. That's just the name of the game. I am still working on making some of the money back on the books I've published. That's just how it is, and sometimes it will take 2 years to get it done. But, you know, that's what it's like whenever you're publishing. So traditional publishing usually have better avenues, as I said, to get your work out in front of people. They have better access to bookstores. So they have a lot more influence. If you are self-publishing, you're only going to sell as many books as you can get in front of people. So you have to work really hard at getting out there and selling your books and getting your face in front of people. And with independent publishing, whether it's with a publishing company or you know, a small press, or you know, it's your self-publishing, you're going to have to work really hard to get out there to make the money. It's more than just sitting down and writing. You have to do what you need to do to sell your book. So when it all comes down to it, most of the time you are your own publicist. And if you have someone that is willing to do publicity for you, you've got to make sure that they're out there doing the publicity for you, because if they're not out there working for you, then you're not going to be making anything. So ultimately, though, you have the most control over what you make. So that's the really basic lowdown on traditional versus independent publishing. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free. I know I didn't hit everything that you might have questions about, but pretty much traditional publishing, they have other people, but you still might not make a lot of money. Independent publishing, there's not very much money in that either. I know this is really centered around money today. But a lot of people, you know, you're doing all this work. You want to have some kind of gratification from it, which part of gratification is getting people to read your work and earning some money off of your work. I know a lot of people finish their first draft and they think, all right, so what is the realistic thing I can do to get this out in front of people and make money off of it? And the thing is that, you know, you've got to write the second draft. You've got to get it all clean. And if you want to go traditional publishing, it's going to take some time to find a traditional publisher that may publish you. You may need to get an agent. There are many things that you will need to do if you're only going to go the traditional route that's going to take a little bit longer to make that happen. And even then, you're not guaranteed to make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It really only depends on how much you are willing to do to make it happen. So, trying to end that on a positive note. You can do what you need to do to make that happen. It's just all about your own willingness to do that. The next episode of Rachel Pilcher Writing Workshop Facebook Live is going to be on October the 21st. I am supposed to be at a family reunion that day, so I hope I'm back home by 6 o'clock. If not, we may be pulling over on the side of the road and filming from a field somewhere in North Texas. It just depends on where we are at 6. Hopefully we're here. But if not, the topic is going to be, should you NaNoWriMo? So NaNoWriMo, excuse me, if you don't know, is National Novel Writing Month. That is in November. So I thought, you know, October 21st, that's going to be our last episode before November. So that was going to be a really good topic. And what I'll be discussing at that time is if you should do it, what it is, how you do it, what you need to do to get set up for it, and hopefully give you at least 10 days prep before November 1st to get ready to write a novel in a month. So I hope you have a great night. It's been threatening to rain here in Fort Worth for a couple of days. And it actually looks like it might be getting pretty cloudy outside. So stay dry if you're going out. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you on the 21st. Have a good evening. Bye.